What's up, everybody? Hello and welcome to Not Your Average Meta, an MTG Commander channel dedicated to bringing you decks and commanders you wouldn't normally find in your average meta. This week's video is brought to you by our new channel sponsor, International MTG. If you're looking for competitive pricing on your favorite MTG cards old and new, be sure to check out the International MTG store and TCG Player, link in the description of this video. We'd also like to give a special shout out to one of Not Your Average Meta's generous patrons, Martin Stanley, for everything he's done to help out the channel. On this week's episode of Not Your Average Meta, we're bringing you another game featuring 2 new decks to the channel as well as 2 returning decks. This week's matchup features Patrick once again barring Fogg's mono-green Gwenna Eyes of Gaea deck, Ryan showing off his newly built Ob Nixilis Captive Kingpin Rakdos deck, Foggerl playing his new Jund Commander Gyrus Walker of Corpses, and Foil back again rocking his mono-blue Tekuthal Inquiry Dominus Proliferate deck. Now that we have our fighters, let's step into the Thunderdome and see which deck will come out on top. Turn 1, Ryan pays 2 life for an untapped Blood Crypt before casting a turn 1 Soul Ring, a Mind Stone, and then a Basilisk Collar. Fogg plays a Forest for turn, while Foil plays an Island, and Patrick plays a Forest of his own before paying 1 for a Wavehair's Bauble. Ryan plays a Mountain for turn, and then pays to cast his commander on turn 2 before passing his turn to Fogg, who plays a Swamp for turn, and then casts a Rampant Growth to go get a land from his library. Foil plays a Prismatic Vista for turn before paying 1 life in order to crack it and go get another island from his library. This then has Ryan exiling a card under his commander while giving him a +1/+1 counter. Foil then pays to cast a Tablet of Completion before passing his turn to Patrick, who plays a Forest for turn and then pays 2 for a Sylvan Anthem. Ryan plays a Haunted Ridge for turn and then pays to cast a Bloodseeker along with a Pain Distributor. Ryan then goes to combat, swinging his commander over at Foil for 5 commander damage before he passes his turn to Fogg. Fogg plays a Forest for turn and then casts a Blanchwood Prowler, which has him losing 1 life when he enters play, and Ryan exiling the top card of his library and putting a counter on his commander. This then also has Fogg creating a treasure token and then milling the top 3 cards of his library, which then has him putting a land from among them into his hand. The rest of the cards then go into his graveyard, and Fogg uses his treasure to help him cast a Gorging Vulture, which has him losing another life and Ryan exiling another card from his library. Fogg then mills the top 4 cards of his library, gaining 0 life, and on his end step, Foil taps his tablet in order to put a counter on it. Foil then draws and plays an island for turn before passing his turn to Patrick, who plays a Forest for turn and pays 3 in order to cast his commander. This then has him losing 1 life and Ryan exiling the top card of his library while Patrick creates a treasure token. Ryan draws and then plays a tapped Smoldering Marsh from his exile pile before he uses his Soul Ring to help him cast a Vengeful Ancestor. Ryan then creates a treasure token and casts an Arcane Signet from his exile pile before he then casts a Grape Shot, dealing 1 damage to each of his opponents multiple times. This then has him adding more counters to his commander and exiling a handful of cards. Ryan then decides to go to combat and swings his commander over at Fogg, hitting him for 13 commander damage. Fogg plays another Forest for turn before paying 4 to cast a Carrion Grub. This then has him losing another life, which has Ryan exiling another card under his commander. Fogg then creates a treasure token and mills the top 4 cards of his library, putting him into his graveyard. Fogg then loses another life to sack his treasure in order to help him cast a Horned Helm, which has Ryan exiling another card under his commander. He then goes to combat, swinging his Goaded Creature over at Patrick, which has Fogg losing another life, and Ryan adding a counter to his commander and exiling another card. On his end step, Foil adds another counter to his tablet before he then draws for turn and plays a Fabled Passage. Foil then cracks the passage to go get another island from his library before he then taps out in order to cast his commander, Tekuthal. This then has him losing a life while Ryan exiles another card under his commander and Foil creates a treasure token. Foil then cracks a treasure, losing another life in order to help him cast a Thrumming Bird while Ryan exiles another card under his commander. Patrick draws and then uses his commander to help him cast a Relic Golem, which has him losing a life and Ryan exiling a card under his commander, while Patrick untaps his commander and adds 2 counters to it and creates a treasure token. Patrick then taps his commander once again to help him cast Archers of Quasar, which has him losing a life and Ryan exiling a card under his commander, Patrick adding 2 more counters to his commander before he then scries 1 card, putting it on the bottom of his library. Ryan plays an Urborg for turn before he then pays to cast some Mana Barbs from his exile pile, as well as casting Underworld Dreams. Ryan then also pays to equip his commander with the Basilisk Collar before then going to combat, swinging his commander over at Patrick for almost lethal commander damage, and in response, Patrick sacks his treasure token in order to help him cast Winds of Qualsima, which then fogs combat. Ryan then goes to his instep, exiling the rest of the cards under his commander, and passes his turn to Fog, who plays a Jund Panorama for turn. Fog then remembers to lose a life from drawing a card, which has Ryan exiling a card under his commander, before he then loses 3 additional life in order to cast his commander, which has Ryan exiling 3 more cards under his commander. Gyrus then enters with 3 +1/+1 counters, and Fog pays in order to equip him with the helm, which has him losing a life and Ryan exiling another card. Foil untaps return and then draws, which has him losing a life and Ryan adding an additional counter to Ob Nixilis before exiling another card under his commander. Foil then pays 4, losing 4 life in order to cast the Phasing of Zhalfir. Foil then goes to combat, swinging his Thrumming Bird over at Patrick for 1 damage, which has Ryan putting a counter on his commander and exiling another card from his library. With the Proliferate trigger on the stack, Foil then pays in order to remove the counters from his tablet in order to make his commander indestructible using its ability. Foil then uses the Proliferate ability to uptick his Saga to the 3rd level, and in the process, he phases out his Thrumming Bird, while the rest of the table's creatures all get destroyed by the Saga and they get replaced by 2/2 black Phyrexian creature tokens. Thrumming Bird then faces back in and he passes his turn. Patrick draws for turn and loses a life before playing a forest. He then taps his commander, which helps him cast a Stampeding Wildebeest before he then untaps his commander, adding 2 more counters to her. He then taps his commander once again to help him cast a Pengusaur before she untaps and gets 2 more counters. Patrick then goes to combat, rightfully hitting Ryan for 7 commander damage. Ryan draws for turn and then pays to recast his commander a 2nd time, before he then pays 2 in order to cast a Terminate, destroying Patrick's commander. Gwenna then goes to the command zone and Ryan pays to once again equip his commander with the Basilisk Collar. On his end step, Fog pays in order to crack his Panorama in order to go get another swamp from his library. Fog draws return and plays a forest, which has him losing a life and Ryan putting a counter on his commander and exiling a card from his library. Fog then pays 5, losing 5 life to once again recast his commander, who enters with 5 counters on him, while Ryan adds 5 counters to his commander and exiles 5 cards from the top of his library. Fog then pays 2 more to cast a Mire Triton, which has Ryan putting more counters on his commander and exiling more cards, while Fog then mills the top 2 cards of his library into his graveyard and he gains 2 life. On his end step, Foil adds another counter to his tablet before he then untaps and draws return. Foil then loses 3 life and casts Party Jace, which has Ryan exiling 3 more cards from the top of his library and putting more counters on his commander. Foil then upticks Jace, which has each player drawing a card and everybody losing a life, which has Ryan then exiling more cards and putting more counters on Ob Nixilis. Foil then pays to cast a Preordain, which has him scrying 2 cards before putting it back on top and drawing a card. This then has him losing another life while Ryan adds a counter to his commander and exiles the top card of his library. Foil then cracks his treasure to cast a Stone Coil Serpent where X is equal to 1 before he swings his Thrumming Bird over at Patrick for 1 damage. This then has Ryan exiling another card to his commander while Foil then proliferates all the counters on his permanents. Patrick untaps and bounces his creature back to his hand before he then draws for turn. He then remembers to lose his life, which has Ryan putting another counter on his commander and exiling a card from his library. Patrick then loses 4 life to recast Pengusaur, which has him scrying a card to the bottom of his library into his play. Patrick then loses another life to help cast an Arcane Signet, which has Ryan adding more counters to Ob Nixilis and exiling another card. Ryan draws for turn and then casts a Dockside Extortionist from his exile pile, which creates him 6 treasures when he enters play. He then casts Prosper Tomebound as well as a Dark Ritual. Ryan then casts a Disciple of the Vault, which gets countered by Foil with a Reject Imperfection. Ryan's spell then gets countered and Foil proliferates all the counters on his permanents. Ryan then casts Pestilence as well as an All Will Be One, and with no answers in hand, the table scoops the game up to Ryan. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe in order to see more games and decks you wouldn't normally see in your average meta.